Hey guys, I'm back with another, well, not really another update, but another video. Um, so recently, I saw a comment. Someone was talking about using Bone Curse on this build as a source of actual damage from the skill itself. And a little bit later, I saw a video by The Curse. There'll be a link in the description. He's a pretty smart guy. He's got a lot of great Warlock builds this patch. But I didn't realize that with these nodes here where you have a certain number of hits, the Chaos Bolt refreshes the duration on the hits. And this is so wildly insane that it basically almost triples the damage on this build if you use it. But the only problem is the only thing you can get hits in with on an enemy is Chaos Bolt. You cannot hit with anything else. Let's talk about the changed setup to accommodate for that. And this probably isn't even really the best setup you can run with it. Like, I have similar gear. The only thing I've changed is the chest I'm wearing and a couple of idols to make sure I have 180 attributes. But honestly, this helmet now is dog shit because I'm not going to be scaling. I'm not going to be scaling dodge anymore. Oh yeah, I did change the amulet too. Frailty is pretty good, but I'm not going to be scaling dodge. I'm just going to scale more armor and more health. There's a couple problems that we have to solve by dropping Harvest and Rip Blood. But it's just much more damage. And this is on a Lich, by the way. Same character as before. We're not even a Warlock, so I mean we can use these flat spell damage for curse nodes here. But we don't have access to Withering, which would be a huge source of damage. We have zero access to Withering. There's no way that we can apply the debuff without removing Bone Curse. There's just no way. And Withering would more than double the damage of Bone Curse, which would be just about double the damage for the build. And we obviously don't have the more damage per curse on the target. There's still a convincing reason to play Lich with the setup, but Warlock is probably better, at least from a damage perspective. I have a feeling that Lich is better defensively for various reasons, but so I'll talk about first with the skills. So the way that you'd want to scale Bone Curse damage is by first converting it to necrotic, because there's a little bit easier access for necrotic damage rather than fizz. And that kind of goes well when you're trying to scale just a little bit of Chaos Bolt damage for consistency's sake. It doesn't deal a lot of damage relative to Bone Curse, but it does deal damage when you don't have Bone Curse applied to a target, which is important if you're trying to clear out a couple of things here and there and you don't want to cast something that'll proc your Bone Curse. So, the first thing is there's this node that's just more damage. There's this kill threshold and more damage. And then there's Marked for Death. These are really travel nodes here just to reach Misery, because we have Marked for Death on the gloves anyway, which I still think are going to be best in slot. Armor Shred here is nice, but again, these are just travel nodes. Really, the meat of it is this node. You get more damage, but it only lasts for 4 hits. And then this node, it has 1 hit, but it always crits, and it deals 2.5 times the damage. This presents 2 problems. The first one is that the Bone Curse itself has a cooldown, which we'll get to later, but it also has a maximum hit of 1. So if you hit an enemy that has Bone Curse on it, the Bone Curse will be gone. Except for the fact that you can refresh the duration of it with this node here. And that does refresh that 1 hit. So if you only hit with Chaos Bolt, it'll just constantly refresh that 1 hit. And that's why this is so insane. Now the cooldown, it's not too bad because we have 3 ways that we can apply it. You can cast it manually, you can teleport and cast it, or you can auto-proc it occasionally every 6 seconds with Chaos Bolt. Just make sure that you spec this. Now, there's a couple of changes that you'll want to make. You can't put points here. You can't put any other hits on your character. No skills that deal hits besides Chaos Bolt. With exception to Transplant. Transplant will hit an enemy but it'll recast the curse on the enemy anyway, so it doesn't matter. It'll remove the curse and then just reapply it, so it'll be fine. So that means that we have 2 skills that we despecialized out of, and we replaced it with 1 skill, Bone Curse. So I'll talk about the other skill that we have here. So Wandering Spirits, personally, I think is the best way to go here. If we look at what we had with Harvest, we had Shred, and we had Global Crit, and we had Movement Speed. So we don't exactly need the global crit. We have a reasonable crit chance with Chaos Bolt itself, and we also have guaranteed crits with Bone Curse, so the global crit doesn't really matter. The thing that really hurts is the movement speed and the loss of Shred. There's nothing we can really do about the movement speed. We move slightly slower, and we have 60% reduced damage, because this is damage with Wrong Warp. However, you can gain Shred through Wandering Spirits anyway. It's not up all the time, but it's up most of the time when you want it. The other part of it is we put a 4th node here, and we actually are able to cast faster because of the mana recovery from infused souls. All you do is you just put points in that give you uptime. So you put on this, which increases the duration but increases the cooldown as well. And then with some cooldown recovery, you can have near 100% uptime. The base duration is 6 seconds. This is +5 with a cooldown of 13.8. So you have 2.8 seconds of downtime, and then 1 point in reveal rate. I believe, but I'm not certain. I believe that this gives you more spirits during its duration, which just means more mana. We're not really using this for damage. If that's not the case, then you probably just put it here so that the skill costs less mana. Because technically you have to spend mana and then slowly gain it over the 11-second duration of Wandering Spirits. But apart from that, this is, I think, the best skill that you can run, because you can't really run anything else, because all of your other skills you either have to spend time casting to apply debuffs, like for example Spirit Plague, or are hits that will remove your Bone Curse. There's certain exceptions, like for example you could run Aura of Decay, but there's not much here that's really gonna give you anything. I mean, there's not really a reason to get Armor Shred because we have plenty of it elsewhere. So I think Wandering Spirits is the best way to go for this particular setup. And then we have Reaper Form. I got a tier 7 Reaper Form chest, so I put some points into cast speed, another point in swiftness just as a travel, and then I think I put 1 more point into critical strike multiplier. The rest of the gear is still pretty bad. This is a good one for the setup that we were running before without Bone Curse, but the problem is Bone Curse has guaranteed crits, so the only thing this does for the base type anyway is give crit chance for Chaos Bolt. There's a base type that gives you implicit critical strike multiplier, which is going to be better for Bone Curse. Crystal Skull is going to feel more consistent when enemies don't have Bone Curse on them, but you're going to deal more damage with different base types that give you crit multi with Bone Curse itself. It's actually pretty insane. I'll leave some clips in, but apart from that, it's very similar. This helmet, though, I mean, you really want to have tier 7 extra proj, because the more projectiles we hit or we can shoot out, the more hits we can get. I'll kind of quickly try and explain how Bone Curse works for people who don't quite understand why it's so good. Basically, when you curse enemies with it, it applies a debuff that hits them a second time when they get hit. Now, it doesn't have a lot of damage. I don't think it tells you here. It's something like, 20% effective added damage. It's a little deceptive, though, because it says it deals triple damage if you deal the hit yourself, which we are. So it's technically 60% effective added damage because of that. I've seen the estimated damage go to about 15k with this, which is technically 45k with the triple damage, and we can get about, I think, at least 15 hits in per second with Bone Curse. which pretty much means Bone Curse itself is like 700,000 target dummy damage per second. It's kind of insane. And then you have maybe 20, or sorry, maybe 200k with Chaos Bolts. Yeah, it really surprised me just how good the setup was. And we're not even playing something that can scale curses as well as a Warlock could with Withering. The one thing about the helmet is I think you're going to want to go with armor and double life, and probably either sealed like tier 1, 2, 3, 4 level of Chaos Bolt, so you only get +1, and then the other prefix being flat damage to curses, or get flat damage to curses sealed. If you get Chaos Bolt sealed, basically you're going to take a point out of Pandemonium here. It's a good point because it gets us more hits in technically with shotgunning, but it's not that good that it's worth trying to get +2 to Chaos Bolt over +1. I think the flat damage to curses is going to be better. I'm just kind of napkin mathing in my head. It's probably like 15 or 20% more damage for a tier 5 mod of that on your helmet. So it's pretty insane. Yeah, that's the kind of idea that I'm going for here. So with some of the points that I moved around here, I decided to pick up Necrotic Pen. Before, I didn't have this because our damage was kind of split between cold and necrotic. But now, Chaos Bolt damage is still split between fire and necrotic. This still does give you a little bit of damage with Chaos Bolt, but it gives you way more damage with your curse. I think it's about half as good on bosses anyway as having the withering node here, having all the stacks of wither, because this is only 120% more damage on bosses. And bosses, I don't know exactly how much resistance they have. I would assume they have about 50%. You can reduce it down to about 0, but enemies that have more resistances Pen tends to be better against those enemies. So it's probably 40 or 50% of the power, which is actually pretty reasonable for 8 points. It is probably 30% more damage. And then there's base damage here. This is pretty nice too. Really, the big advantage that Lich has is just attributes. That's the main thing. You get more intelligence, and you get more leech, which means it's easier to play Twisted Heart. You have roughly the same crit multi. This is a 50 here, and then Warlock has 40 with an extra 30 when you deal double damage, which is pretty effective. So you could maybe say this is like 70, but with Reaper Form, you have to remember you have another 40 crit multi here. Reaper Form is really the thing that gives Lich anywhere, gets Lich anywhere close to Warlock, because you get extra defense with armor, you get about 120% increased damage, and you get cast speed, and then some extra flat and crit multi. I don't think it's enough to make Lich better for scaling the curse damage, but it's definitely respectable. It is 850 corruption viable, actually, so far. I think the damage is definitely there for 1,000 plus, but I don't think I'm really going to push that far. Maybe not, but the main problem with corruption pushing right now is that basically every hit you take stuns you, and so there's not really an element of skill. Like, you can't dodge every single hit. You can dodge some of them, but as soon as you get stunned 2 or 3 times in a row, you're basically dead, even if you have 5,000 armor and almost 10,000 hit points with ward and health included, as well as 20% DR from the rings. There's not much you can really do when enemies are dealing 10 times the damage like as a base multiplier, and then you have echoes like frenzy and haste, or high health enemies deal increased damage, and all of a sudden they're dealing 13, 15 times the damage, which is just way too much. So I've noticed some of the hits on when I take on bosses will basically remove all of my ward. Like if I have 3 or 4,000, basically one hit, 3 or 4,000 ward gone. So there's, you know, the occasional death and 3 deaths in echoes here, but it makes it difficult to motivate myself to push further corruption. So, but the damage is definitely there. Now there's definitely some swaps you can make for gear. Like red rings again aren't the best for damage, but they're definitely the best for defense. Twisted Heart still is best in slot, except you probably don't want spell critical strike chance. You probably want critical strike multiplier. I think these are still best in slot. I mean, it's really the only way you have to apply Mark for Death. Well, except for you can apply it with Bone Curse, but this is just an easy way to apply it and helps you auto proc Bone Curse with your Chaos Bolt. The other thing is it's not too bad to get 3 LP. It'll only cost you 2, maybe 2.5 million at the Merchants Guild, and it has health on it, which is a pretty good mod. So if you can get 3 other good mods like this, then it's pretty damn good. But critical strike chance probably isn't the best mod for it anymore. You definitely want area for area skills and definitely want armor shred, but I think probably int is going to be a better prefix to have on there, or even a health suffix. So the one thing I did get that's pretty crazy, I finally got a double prefix wrong warp with tier 7 critical strike multiplier. This is just one of the most insane items I've ever had in this game. Unfortunately, it kind of low rolled on the spell damage. Even, I mean, it's still good, but it's not ideal. But I mean, I can't complain. Anyway, this video is getting pretty long, but I'll show you an echo here. Find one that's not great. I guess glancing blow isn't that bad. 100% glancing blow, so it'll take 35% less hit damage, I think is how that works. Oh my gosh, mage right away. And so as soon as Bone Curse gets on him, as soon as I cast it, he'll melt. Anything that doesn't have Bone Curse takes a little bit more effort to kill, but you can usually just run right past him. And you can see there that they don't want to die. So you curse them, pretty much instantly blow up. I mean, it's really crazy, the the curse. Yeah, I mean, I barely saw his health bar move after he got cursed. It's just, I'm really baffled with this. Where is this gate, dude? Alright, well, it was an ambush. Yeah, see, this guy doesn't bother me as much anymore. Something removed the curse there. Something not Chaos Bolts hit him. See, there's it gone again. But yeah, I mean, it's really crazy. 50k gold from that. That's kind of insane. Anyway, I'll leave a clip of a monolith boss at the end of this, just so you can see a little bit more of the single target. But this might be the highest damage Lich build in the game, and it's still going to be better on Warlock. I honestly, Lich is probably in the state where it's a good class, just like Sorcerer is, but in the same way that Rune Master is just better Sorcerer, Warlock is just better with almost every skill. With exception to if you're trying to scale the hit damage itself from Chaos Bolt. So for closing remarks though about this, I think if you're definitely starting out, scaling the hit damage of Chaos Bolt is better. You're going to be able to build tankier faster, and I think you're going to have a bit easier of a time playing it, and it's a lot less button presses. Once you get to the point, though, where you have a reasonable amount of mana regen and you can try and get close to 3,000 or higher health, then Twisted Heart kind of can take care of all of your ward generation instead of having to have a supplementary. Oh, I forgot the skill. Rip Blood, yeah, for ward. If you go for the Bone Curse strategy, the thing to remember is you cannot have the proc nodes here. Even if you have skills despecialized, these will still occasionally proc a hit, which means that anything that it hit no longer is cursed, which means you lose all of that damage. I mean, Chaos Bolts hits for like 3,000, 15 times per second. The curse hits for like 15,000, 15 times per second, or something crazy like that. It's absolutely ridiculous. Anyway, this is getting pretty long, but anyway, I'll see you in the next one.
Death will not take me.